Well, friends, good morning. I always love when Jesus just tears into the Pharisees. There's just something so give it to him. And I always want to preach on that, and it always seems the Lord's like, no, Patrick, we're going to go in a different direction. It's probably his way of sparing you from my sinfulness. So I'm going to preach on the first reading. So, in fact, you're going to hear a lot of this Genesis reflection this week. Maybe it's an overstatement, I don't know. But I think this week's cycle of readings, the first reading that are taken from Genesis 1 to 3, this might be perhaps the most significant cycle, this most significant chunk of days in the entire year. I know, it could be an overstatement, but I don't know. I don't think it is. Why would I say that? Because in this week, in this reflection on Genesis 1 through 3, we're given a glimpse of our origin. We're given a glimpse of the beginning, what God intended for us, for our humanity, before sin, before death, before division entered our world. Okay, I will preach about the Pharisees for a moment. Remember the time when Jesus is engaged in that conversation with the Pharisees and the Sadducees about the issue of divorce and remarriage. And they say to Jesus, hey, Moses allowed us to write a bill of divorce to separate ourselves from our wives. What do you say? Jesus shakes his head, He says, Moses allowed you to write a bill of divorce to separate yourselves from your wives because of the hardness of your hearts. Then he says, but in the beginning, it was not so. Have you not read in the beginning, God made them male and female? That in Jesus' dialogue, he's directing them, he's directing us to an original plan, an original humanity that we lost before the hardness of heart entered in, before the hardness of our hearts, entered in, before all of that. This original plan that we forfeited, but it's the plan that Christ came to redeem for us, to regain that plan for us, to reinflate our spiritual, flattened tires, so to speak. So here's what I want to do. I want to hone in on just one small aspect of today's first reading from Genesis. I want us to notice this sort of break in the pattern, and I want to highlight two things in particular about this. So in this first reading, we hear, let there be light, let there be a dome, let the water under the sky be gathered, let the earth bring forth vegetation, let there be lights in the dome of the sky, let the water teem with an abundance of living creatures, let the earth bring forth all kinds of living creatures. Then God said, let us make man in our image, after our likeness. Did you feel that shift? It's let there be, let there be, let there be, let there be, and it is, and it is, and it is, and it is. And all of a sudden, it's let us make man in our image, after our likeness. Pope St. John Paul II, reflecting deeply on the words here of Genesis, he sees in the words of the divine author here a sort of, he's showing us his cards. He's tipping his hand, so to speak. He says, it was as if God paused for a moment and entered into dialogue within himself. Let us make man in our image after our likeness. It's as if in this pause, it's as if the persons of the Trinity, this first person plural, are having this dialogue amongst themselves. Are we sure we want to do this? To make this human creature who will be a hybrid of heaven and earth, matter and spirit, body and soul, higher than the animals, lower than the angels. This creature of complementarity, of masculinity and femininity that together in their bodily and spiritual union, they're capable of imaging our own triune nature here in the creaturely realm. Are we sure we want to do this? Are we willing to take the risk of filling creation with a free creature? A creature who could use and abuse its freedom, bringing about grave suffering and grave evil and great beauty and great love. Are we willing to do this? Are we willing to take the risk? Yes. Let us make man in our image after our likeness. Right? Creation gets crowned with humanity, God's image bearers, right? They're the only creature who can freely respond to God and be in relationship with God. The church fathers referred to that capacity in us as our capax Dei, that we were capacitated for God, capacitated for a relationship with an infinite God. St. Augustine, writing in the 4th, 5th century, he put it this way in his Confessions. He said, "You have made us for yourself, O Lord, you who are infinite beauty, infinite goodness, infinite life and love. You have made us for yourself, O Lord, and our hearts are restless until we rest in you." That we are the creatures that God loves the most, and we are the creatures that he has entrusted with the most, to give voice to all of creation and order all of creation back to God in praise and worship. Like that's the whole notion of dominion that we're given. Not domination, but stewardship, ordering all of voiceless creation in praise back to God. Finally, this last point, John Paul II's theological genius about this text. He says, man becomes the image of God not so much in the moment of solitude, man alone, but as in the moment of communion, when he is there with her, Adam is there with Eve, when he looks upon her and she looks upon him, and he lets out that ecstatic cry, "This one at last, bone of my bones, flesh of my flesh, this one shall be called woman." Like in the call of the two to become one flesh, to be fruitful and multiply, we image the Trinity's life-giving love. We are imago Dei, in the image and likeness of God, and we are also imago Trinitatis, in the image of the Trinity, in this complementarity. It's pretty extraordinary to be human. So next time you hear someone say, "I'm only human," you need to say, "You don't know what that means, apparently."